I will talk about tonight is called Pathama Gelañña Sutta. Now you should not confuse this with Gilana Suttas. There are 3 Gilana Suttas, and in those suttas, Moggallana, Kassapa and Buddha was sick, and what the Buddha taught there was 7 factors of enlightenment, and that is called Pathama, Dutiya, Tatiya, Gilana Sutta. But this is Gellañña Sutta, Pathama Gelañña Sutta. This is called Gellañña because it is delivered when the Buddha went to visit the Gilana Sala, or sick hall. This sutta does not begin with, "Thus have I heard." And that is because this Gellañña Sutta belongs to Samyutta Nikaya. So in the Samyutta Nikaya there are many suttas, and in Anguttara Nikaya also many suttas. So the reciters just left this Evame Sutta at the beginning of many suttas. So in the books now, "Thus have I heard" is not mentioned there. But we must understand that this sutta was also reported by the Ananda Thera at the first Buddhist Council. So we have "Thus have I heard" in parenthesis. So the sutta begins with, "Once the Exalted One dwelt near Vesali, in the gabled house in the great forest. In the evening, after the Exalted One had risen from his seclusion, he went to the sick hall and sat down on a prepared seat. Being seated, he addressed the monks as follows." So this sutta was delivered in or near Vesali, and here the Exalted One had risen from his seclusion. Now it is the custom of monks to spend the day in seclusion, and in the evening they went out. So in the evening, after the Exalted One has risen from his seclusion, he went to the sick hall. Now there seems to be sick halls in monasteries where sick monks stay. So Buddha went to the sick hall and sat down on a prepared seat. Now, why Buddha went to the sick hall? The commentary said that there are 2 reasons why Buddhas visited sick hall. Now the first one is, even the Buddha, the noblest of the nobles, visited the sick hall to attend to the sick monks. So knowing this, the other monks will understand that sick monks are to be attended upon, and so they will also attend to the sick monks. So that is why Buddha went there. So that is the first reason. Now once there was a monk at the sick hall, not necessarily this sick hall, but once a monk was sick, and his ailment was stomach trouble. He had stomach trouble, and maybe it was severe because it is said that he lay in his urine and excrement. Buddha at that time, with Ananda as his disciple, went around the monastery and saw this. So when Buddha saw this, Buddha asked, "What is your ailment?" Then the monk said, "It is stomach trouble." "And you have nobody to attend?" He said, "Yes, there nobody to attend." "And why there are no attendant monks on you?" Then he said, "Bhante, I do not do anything for the Sangha. For other people I do not do anything. That is why now I have no one to attend to." So when Buddha heard this, Buddha called Ananda and asked him to fetch water. And then Buddha poured the water and Ananda washed the monk. So after that, Buddha assembled the bhikkhus and asked, there is a monk at the Gilana Sala, do you know? And they said, "No, yes, we know." "And what is his ailment?" They said, "This is stomach trouble." "And why do you, and is there any monk attending upon him?" He said, "No." "And why is that?" They said, "Because this monk does not do anything good to other people, and so there is no one to attend to here." Then the Buddha said, "You have no mother, you have no father to attend to you. So if you do not attend to one another, who would attend to you? He who wished to attend on me should attend the sick monk." And then he laid down a rule. So when a monk is sick, if he has the preceptor, then preceptor must take care of him until he got well, and so on. If he has no preceptor, no teacher, no nothing, and if he is really alone, then the Sangha would attend to him. And if the Sangha does not attend to him, there is an offense of wrongdoing. And so Buddha laid down this rule that the sick monks should be attended to by the Sangha or by his preceptor, and so on. There is another story of Buddha and Ananda attending upon another sick monk, and that is in the Dhammapada. And there Buddha attended upon that monk, but did not lay down a rule, or did not say to the monks that you have no father and mother to attend to, and so on. He just attended upon the monk, and then asked by the monks, he related the story of that monk. So that is another instance where Buddha, along with Ananda, attended upon a sick monk. Another reason why Buddha visited the sick hall was that there may be monks meditating even in the sick hall, and so to to give them suitable meditation subject, he goes there. So he went there. So he went there for two reasons. For other monks to take him as an example and attend the sick monks, and also to preach suitable meditation subject to monks. So he went to the sick hall and sat down on a prepared seat. Now, it is a custom during the lifetime of the Buddha to prepare a seat for the Buddha whenever there are monks discussing or doing whatever. So when Buddha came, they don't have to look for seats and so on. There is just the prepared seat, and so he sat down on a prepared seat. And then being seated, he addressed the monks as follows. So he just addressed the monks. Nobody asked him anything, but he just addressed the monks. Mindfully and clearly comprehending monks, should a monk await his time? This is our instruction to you. So he said two things here: mindfully and clearly comprehending. Mindfully, should a monk await his time. Clearly comprehending, should a monk await his time. Now, await his time, the commentary does not comment upon these words. So, we do not really know what this means. Maybe this means await the time of death because it is a sick hall, or just wait on the sick monks and they also practice meditation. And how monks is a monk mindful? Here in monks, a monk dwells contemplating the body in the body, ardent, clearly comprehending and mindful, removing covetousness and grief in the world, and so on. So four foundations of mindfulness Buddha taught here. And these four foundations of mindfulness, when a monk is practicing these four foundations of mindfulness, he is said to be mindful. And I have talked about this many times here, and so I should not repeat this. And how monks does a monk act with clear comprehension? Here a monk going forward and going back acts with clear comprehension and so on. And this is also from the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, clear comprehension section. So when a monk is practicing mindful when going forward and going back and so on, then he is said to be acting with clear comprehension. And clear comprehension also, I have talked about it, and so I would not repeat it here. So this is how a monk makes himself mindful and how a monk acts with clear comprehension. And after that, Buddha teaches the contemplation on feelings. Monks, if a monk is thus mindful, clearly comprehending, having effort which burns defilements, and having mind directed towards achievement, and a pleasant feeling arises in him, he knows now a pleasant feeling has arisen in me, and so on. So here, first, if a monk is thus mindful, clearly comprehending, that means he is practicing mindfulness and clear comprehension as mentioned above, and also having effort which burns defilements. This is the translation of the Pali word atapi. So atapi is usually translated as ardent. But here I want to make the original flavor clear to you, and so translate it as having effort which burns defilements. Now, the effort makes the defilements disappear or not arise. So that is here as having effort which burns defilements. Now, you all know that actually it does not burn, but it is like burning. So, atapi means having effort which burns defilements. And the second word is translated as having mind directed towards achievement. Pali word is pahitatta. Now, this word is commented upon by modern scholars in one way and ancient commentaries in another way. Modern scholars derive this word from the root dha, D-H-A. So from the root dha, and pa is a prefix, so they have pahitatta. And so they translate it as just resolute or something like that. But interpretation, I think the last part of the word atta is difficult to explain. The ancient commentaries translated in another way. So according to them, pahita, that the root is he, and pa is prefix, and ta is suffix. So pahita and atta. So atta means mind, and pahita means directed. So pahitata means having mind directed towards something, towards achievement, towards nibbana. So there are two interpretations of this word. And this means just the firmness of effort. So this means that the person has no regard for his body or his life, but make his mind directed towards the achievement. So while a monk is thus mindful, clearly comprehending, having effort which burns defilement, and having mind directed towards achievement, that means he makes every effort to get rid of mental defilements, and he has his mind directed towards achievement or nibbana, and a pleasant feeling arises in him. So if a pleasant feeling arises in him, in doing so, he knows now a pleasant feeling has arisen in me, because he is noting whatever comes to him at the present moment. He is now aware of the pleasant feeling which arises in him. So now a pleasant feeling has arisen in me. It is dependent, not undependent. And also he considers it is dependent. This pleasant feeling is dependent upon some causes or conditions, not undependent. So undependent but dependent. Now feeling, pleasant feeling here. Pleasant feeling is dependent upon what? Dependent upon what? On this very body it is dependent. So the pleasant feeling which one feels is dependent on this very body. And this body indeed is impermanent. And this body on which the pleasant feeling depends to arise is impermanent. Now when you make note of feeling here, pleasant feeling, you come to see that pleasant feeling does not last long. It disappears, and so it is impermanent. So when you note a pleasant feeling as pleasant feeling, or good, and so on, you come to see that it is impermanent, because it has a arising and a disappearing. And although the pleasant feeling seems to last for some time, actually it does not last for some time. It just arises at this moment and then disappears at this moment. So this pleasant feeling is impermanent, and this body is impermanent, because this body, when he concentrates on his body, he comes to see that it is impermanent, and it is conditioned sankhata. That means conditioned by karma, conditioned by citta, conditioned by consciousness, conditioned by temperature, and conditioned by nutriment. And also there are other conditions. So this body is sankhata, conditioned. That means the conditions come together, and then this body arises. And dependently arisen, since it is sankhata, conditioned, it is dependently arisen. That means it arisen dependently on some other causes or conditions. So when he examines this body is impermanent, conditioned, and dependently arisen. So this he comes to see through vipassana meditation. Although you may think that the body, the physical body, stays for long, actually physical body is also changing every moment. So the body is conditioned and dependently arisen. So there is pleasant feeling, and there is this body. Now pleasant feeling is dependent and not undependent, and it is dependent on this body. And this body is impermanent, conditioned. So conditions means the causes or conditions come together, and then this body is produced. And dependently arisen, now this body has not only the karma, consciousness, temperature, and nutriment, but also ignorance in the past, craving in the past, and karma in the past also. So since this body is dependently arisen and conditioned and impermanent, the feeling which depends on this impermanent body cannot be permanent. So, and if this pleasant feeling is dependent on the body, which on its part is impermanent, conditioned, and dependently arisen, how could a pleasant feeling be permanent? So that is logical thinking. Since it is depending on a body which is itself impermanent, then how could this pleasant feeling be permanent? So it must be impermanent. In regard to both the body and the pleasant feeling, he dwells contemplating impermanence. So both the body and the pleasant feeling, two things, he dwells contemplating impermanence, dwells contemplating dissolution, dwells contemplating removal of stain, dwells contemplating cessation, dwells contemplating relinquishing. Now, with regard to both the body and the pleasant feeling, he dwells contemplating impermanence. Now, you see the impermanence when you see the rising and falling of things. Until and unless you see the rising and falling of things, you don't see impermanence. So, to see impermanence, you must see the rising and disappearing. And the criterion for being impermanent is non-existence after having been. That means just arising and disappearing. First there is nothing, and then it arises, and then it disappears. So, since it is arising and disappearing, it is impermanent. And this impermanence you see when you practice vipassana meditation. So when you practice vipassana meditation and you see the rising and falling of things, then you automatically know that something is impermanent. And he dwells contemplating dissolution. When you reach Bhanga Jnana, seeing only dissolution, then you dwell contemplating dissolution. So that is after seeing rising and falling, you see only falling and not rising. So that is called Pali Vaya Anupassana, contemplation of dissolution. So that contemplation of dissolution arises when you are seeing the arising and disappearing get matured, and now you just see the dissolution or disappearing of things. And he dwells contemplating removal of stain. Now Pali word viraga. Raga means stain, and vi means removal. So removal of stain, viraga. So removal of stain, he contemplates on. Now, the removal here, there are two kinds of removal: vipassana and magga. Vipassana is called viraga, or removal of stain, and magga is also called removal of stain. So when vipassana is meant, removal of stain is by what? Momentary removal. But when the magga or path is meant, then it is removal by total removal or absolute removal. So the removal of stain here means both vipassana and magga. And he dwells contemplating removal of stain means he dwells contemplating the vipassana and also the magga. So attachment is like a stain, hatred is like a stain, delusion is like a stain, and so on. So when these stains are removed, then it is called removal of stain. So vipassana removes these stains momentarily. When you are practicing vipassana, you can remove those stains. But when you are not practicing vipassana, they may come back. So that is the vipassana. Magga is absolute removal, and so those removed by magga stays removed and not come back to you again in the future. He dwells contemplating cessation, nirodha. Viraga and nirodha are actually the same. So just as there are two viragas, there are two nirodhas. Nirodha at the moment of vipassana and nirodha at the moment of magga. So when practicing vipassana meditation, he is said to be dwelling, contemplating cessation. And also when he reaches the magga, he is contemplating cessation again. So when during the vipassana moment, the cessation is momentary cessation, and during magga moment or path moment, it is absolute cessation. And he dwells contemplating relinquishing, that means giving up. Here also there are two kinds of relinquishing, the vipassana and the magga. Vipassana relinquishes the mental defilements by momentary removal, and magga by absolute removal. So when you are practicing vipassana also, you are dwelling, contemplating, relinquishing. And when you gain path consciousness, then you dwell, contemplating, relinquishing. So, and in him who thus dwells, vanishes the latency of greed, raga nusaya, in respect to body and pleasant feeling. So in him who dwells thus, vanishes the latency of greed. Now, the latency of greed is for pleasant feeling, because when there is a pleasant feeling, the tendency is to retain that pleasant feeling, and so there is attachment to that pleasant feeling. So when you have attachment to the pleasant feeling, then latency of greed arises in you. But when you are practicing meditation and you see as the impermanent, and then you contemplate on dissolution and so on, then you are able to prevent this latency of greed arise in you. And so this preventing latency of greed in you is the achievement of the yogi. So the yogi, in him who thus dwells, vanishes the latency of greed in regard to body and pleasant feeling. So both body and pleasant feeling, he has no greed. So this is how latency of greed is prevented in regard to the body and the feeling. So first there is the pleasant feeling, and then this pleasant feeling is dependent and not undependent, and so on. And also this body is impermanent, conditioned, and dependently arisen. So if this feeling is dependent on the body, which is on its part impermanent, conditioned, and dependently arisen, how could a pleasant feeling be permanent? This much you can think of logical thinking, but actually not only logical thinking, but also really seeing the dependency and also conditionality of things. So after seeing this, in regard to both the body and the pleasant feeling, he dwells contemplating impermanence and so on. So he dwells on impermanence, dwells on dissolution, dwells on removal of stain, dwells on cessation, and dwells on relinquishing. So when pleasant feeling is seen as impermanent and so on, there can be no greed towards no greed with regard to the pleasant feeling and also to the body. So the latency of greed is destroyed in regard to the body and pleasant feeling when a yogi practices, say, vipassana meditation. So this is how to deal with pleasant feeling. If you understand how to deal with pleasant feeling, you understand how to deal with painful feeling and neutral feeling. So tomorrow we'll talk about that.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.